With all sorts of content cuts, as well as potential lies made by some of the developers, Pokemon Sword and Shield all the way up until release has been marred in controversy, having players draw battle lines going after each other online, myself included. Should Game Freak hashtag bring back the national dex, or should us plebs be thanking them for the happiness they've brought to us over the years? It's no secret that I myself have had a litany of problems with these games since they were originally revealed, but now that they're fully released and people are able to play them for themselves, are they really that bad? Let's start with the visuals, as that's been a pretty big source of the drama. I definitely do not regret any of the shade I've thrown towards these titles. Everything I've said felt pretty reinforced during my playthrough in terms of these supposedly improved models and animations. If they are improvements, they're pretty weak improvements. Now, there are definitely some sweet looking new Pokemon and move animations. In terms of the new Pokemon, this is probably one of my favorite generations actually. But there are still a ton of problems. That turn animation that was made infamous from the leaks is in fact in the final game. I saw it with my own eyes. Just that should be enough said, but also the fact that we're still doing this nonsense where they just lift the character model up and down for some of the attacks, this would have been embarrassing on the PS2. It should be unacceptable in 2019. Just so jarring. Takes me out of the whole experience. You can't at least have them do a little jump or something like that. They already reuse animations for some of the different moves, adding a fire or lightning effect in that. When a move doesn't have an animation, they should just pull from an existing animation if they have to. I don't even care if it doesn't fit the move, like it's a punch and the guy kicks or something like that. Just for the love of God, please, get rid of this. It should not be happening in modern day games, especially ones that are this financially viable. The environments, similarly, there are some really cool looks to some of these areas, the towns and that, but it still looks like something you'd find on the 3DS just running in HD. I mean, with all this stuff, I'm sorry, comparing it to its peers, like Dragon Quest XI, or other big Nintendo exclusives like Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, the more recently released Luigi's Mansion 3, is completely fair, especially for a game, again, that will probably end up outselling many of the others before it's all said and done. And it just lags so far behind in the visuals department. They did give us some top shelf waifus though, I will admit that. Actually, a lot of the characters I really liked in this. Some cool rivals. Your main one kind of has that dorky, I want to be just like you because you're my best friend personality, similar to Let's Go, but there are other ones that are way better. The regional champ, Leon, with his big dumb cape that has the sponsors plastered all over it. I love it. And I don't want to spoil anything, but there are some bad guys that sort of swoop in out of nowhere towards the end that I really liked. I wish those enemies were used more throughout the game. The main story is pretty good, I think, all things considered. It is a Pokemon game, don't expect this big enthralling narrative, but it's serviceable. Also, the music in this game, I want to state, is pretty solid as well. Now, let's move into something that's admittedly more important. Gameplay. At its core, this is, for the most part, the same Pokemon you've been playing for decades. You run around, catch various Pokemon you find in the wild, level them up, battle gym leaders, collect badges, become a Pokemon master, all that good stuff. And that core is still pretty much perfect. Just like I said when I complained about the changes in the Let's Go games, opting to make it more like Go, the mobile game. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. My main issue with the gameplay is that it has gotten way too easy. And I know, people tell me all the time, ChiGuy, it's a game for kids, I know, it's supposed to be like an introductory RPG. Supposed to be easier. But this is just too basic. The forced XP share is probably my biggest issue here. When you defeat or catch a Pokemon, all the Pokemon in your party will get XP for it, causing your party to level up extremely fast. If you're someone especially who likes to catch a lot of Pokemon along the way, you'll probably find yourself totally steamrolling through the content. I've raised this multiple times in the past, not just an issue with this game, but the Pokemon series in general, in fact. Why can't we get some different difficulty options? Make like a hard mode, hell, an extreme mode that plays like a Nuzlocke run or something. These things definitely aren't that hard to implement. Again, just allow me to turn off the XP share in this game, come on. You could give people special rewards, cosmetics, maybe even unique visual models for different Pokemon as an incentive, and it would keep things engaging for veteran players. Once more, yes, this is a series that targets young players, but it's played by everyone of all ages. So I feel like this one's a no-brainer. I don't know how someone could argue against different difficulty options. It's also very straightforward. Like, after getting a refresher of Gen 1 with Let's Go Pikachu, I've said this in past videos, I'm not the biggest Pokemon fan, definitely haven't played all of them, but playing Let's Go Pikachu kind of reminded me of my experiences with the game, and playing through the different dungeon-esque areas like the Pokemon Tower, the Power Plant, etc. With these sprawling maps that were sometimes like mazes that you would get lost in, I was surprised to not really see much of that here. Everything is pretty much just follow this one path. Even towards the end, you go to this big building and even the characters are like, oh man, this place is huge, and I'm like, okay, here we go. Now I'm gonna do some exploring in here, and no. You just ride an elevator straight to the top, stopping every now and then to fight enemies on different floors. Just a pretty bare-bones adventure in my opinion. The main campaign took me about 22 hours to get through. Do note that's with me rushing through it pretty quickly so I could get a video out. I didn't do much grinding or catch many other Pokemon, which, you know, thanks to that XP share, you really don't have to. But I do think most people will be pushing like 30 plus hours with their playthroughs. There are some new things like the Dynamaxing that turns your Pokemon kaiju size and gives them new moves, something we've kind of seen before, but it's still cool, especially when they take on new forms with the Dynamaxing. The gyms have these different missions you have to complete to get to the gym leader that make them a bit more engaging. They may be puzzles, which, yeah, we've kind of seen before, but there's like one where you're rounding up a bunch of Wooloos, trying to move them towards a goal while avoiding Yampers that'll scatter them and gym leaders that want to battle you. I really enjoyed these segments and wish there was more stuff like it in the rest of the game. You can set up a camp while out in the wild where you can play with your Pokemon to build up your friendliness with them, as well as cook meals to heal them up, give them some bonus XP, other effects. And speaking of the wild, the big addition for me to this game has to be the Wild Zone. You access this pretty early on in the game, and it's a fairly large open environment where you'll find all sorts of Pokemon, some extremely powerful. If you can manage to take some of those tougher ones down early on, especially with that XP share, you're just gonna skyrocket in levels. And if you explore this area with the online functions turned on, you'll see other players in here as well. You can join in with them on raid battles here, where you and a group of players take down a powerful Dynamax Pokemon, visit each other's tents, and play with each other's Pokemon. This area, I will say, when you're playing online, definitely causes the game to take a massive performance hit. Frame rate really starts chugging, but this does feel like the start of what I'd like to see in future games. Again, it's very rough. Things are popping in and out. It's not like you can really interact with people much in real time. But yeah, seeing other people out there on an adventure, grouping up with your friends and maybe adventuring together, I hope that's a direction they're planning to go in. This feels in many ways almost like an alpha test of that. I wish it was a bit more polished. I wish there were more of these areas. You know there's going to be problems when Game Freak is trying to hype the fact that you can control the camera in this area as a big new addition. Like, oh my god, a game with a free moving camera in 2019. Mind-blowing. I do think there is great potential with this Wild Zone for sure, so I do hope they stick with it. In terms of the end game, you have, of course, the standard shiny hunting, rounding out your decks, stuff that you have in every game. There's the Battle Tower, where you battle various AI teams in either single or doubles play, and you get battle points as rewards, which you'll spend on items that'll help you to really start, min-maxing your Pokemon stats. The raid battles, I hope, are a big hook for people. I know they're doing raid events periodically for specific Dynamaxed Pokemon for you to battle and even catch. I haven't had too much time with the raid battles, at least enough to say if I think they'll be really engaging long term, but from what I've played, it's definitely been a fine addition to the game. Overall, I feel that Pokemon Sword and Shield are okay, and that's why they're so disappointing to so many players. We were expecting a huge shift with the added potential of the Switch, and it's clear they haven't taken much advantage of the hardware. Combine that with all the content cuts as we've been talking about, and it's no wonder why people are mad. I think there is definitely stuff here to like, okay? But the Pokemon Company, Game Freak, Nintendo, everyone involved, they are all going to have to do something to get this series caught up with the competition now that they're on Switch. They've long had the excuse of being relegated to these fairly simple handhelds, like, oh yeah, they're not going to innovate and blow our minds too much because it's just on the little baby 3DS. Those days are over, and I know there are strict release dates, games need to come out with the anime, merch, and all that, but that's not the consumer's problem. That's for them to figure out. These games make an astronomical amount of money. Like I said, way more money than a lot of the competition that is making much better games. If they're understaffed, they need to beef up the development team. Hell, if they need a whole nother development team, they still wouldn't be breaking the bank over it when you consider the profits they're generating. I think if they don't do something, they run the risk of falling off in popularity down the line. I know we think of Pokemon as this unbeatable franchise that will always sell insanely well, and that's certainly been the case, but nothing lasts forever. And I think if this series continues to lose pace with the competition, up until now we've been comparing the series to other 3DS games, and it's like, oh yeah, it kind of holds up against everything else. Now it's on the Switch, it is completely fair to compare it to other Switch games. If they stay this course down the line, I think players may move on. And with that, this video's a wrap. Let me know your thoughts on Pokemon Sword and Shield in the comments. Are you currently playing the games? And how do you feel they've turned out given all the commotion leading up to their release? Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this discussion of Pokemon Sword and Shield. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. And if you want to keep the conversation going, hit me up on Twitter at JohnnyZakari. And join my Discord, ChiGuy and Friends. Link to both in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching.